when they talk about being out of your body, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of near-death experience stories, I was out of body looking at myself, at them working on me. But I also experienced some interesting things. They're telling me right now, 2027 is going to be a huge number of people having their abilities awakened and doing more and more of this work.
I want to welcome everybody back to another episode of The Soul Inspired. Today I have Kimberly Meredith with us. She is a two-time near-death experiencer and also a psychic medium. And I'm really excited to talk to her. Been looking forward to having her on the show. So first of all, thank you so much, Kimberly, for coming on The Soul Inspired.
Thank you for having me.
I always start all the everybody that I interview, I talk to the same way, and I wouldn't do it any different with you. If you had this near death experience, what was your life? What was going on in your life leading up to that point?
I was working as a medical technical advisor on many shows, on television shows, and I was also taking care of my grandmother. She's in a nursing home. And I also worked as a nurse assistant at the hospital. I was working on so many shows, helping them fix up the shows like Grey's Anatomy and All My Children. And I also worked on set as an actress too, making the shows look as real as possible. The shows, what you do is you fix it up to look like a real hospital and also to make the shots look as real as possible.
Hmm.
And I was working long hours and probably doing way too much. And my grandmother and I had a very close relationship because uh, she took care of me. My mom passed away young when I was young, and my dad also. And so my grandmother and I had um, a really, really strong bond. And the one of the TV shows that I was working on, which was called Getting On TV show.
Mhm.
Lori Metcalf and Niecy Nash. I don't know if you know them.
I don't know, but
They're pretty cool actresses. One of them came to my grandmother's nursing home, and they were doing research to match the television show. Because the television show is based on people living in a nursing home, and they got to meet my grandmother. So it was like once in a lifetime situation for me. It really, after many, many years trying to get my own show. So I was finally got my own show as a nursing medical on camera director. So I was really excited about it. It was a cool gig to finally get something like that. Yeah, but I still was working at the hospital too. So I don't know if you know what nurse assistants do, but it's a hard job. So
is it pretty much like a nurse, but you're doing a lot of the heavy lifting? You're doing a lot more, you're doing a lot of their work that they don't want to do, if that makes sense.
yeah, I mean, I always was trying to go to school to become an RN. I was in registered with the LVN, and but I always was drawn to the entertainment world, and I was always very good at the entertainment stuff, the on-set camera stuff,
Mhm.
medical technical directing, and I always did acting too. And my whole life, I was dedicating it to helping my family and my grandmother. So I just never fully went all the way, but in the nursing field, I always had sort of a sixth sense of knowing when someone was going to cross over or something like that. So even back then at the hospital, I was always helping people, like going beyond the call of duty. And all the nursing shows, I was very well known in Hollywood to work on.
So because you had that background in nursing, it fit well into the acting gig as well because it was already part of what you did.
Yeah, how I got on the TV shows was a friend of mine was a very well-known a woman that worked on um I think it was Grey's Anatomy, or I don't remember, or it was way before that. Maybe it was Scrubs. she said, do you want to fill in for one of the girls that can't do it? Which is an on-camera nurse.
Mm.
Which I know it sounds easy, but it's not. You have to know how to do the syringes and you have to hook up the EEGs and stuff on actors, but then also say lines at the same time. And I said, I guess so. And then when I showed up, I didn't really kind of know what all that would be about. And then I was very good at it and they liked me. And then I was like, that was really easy. And I got paid for it. And
Mm.
then all of a sudden, I started getting called to do more of it, but still do my shifts at the hospital. And then I started getting more and more known in Hollywood doing it. And then all of a sudden, I got moved up to being the main lady that ran it and became the main medical technical advisor. And also, I came from a writing background. I used to write plays
Oh, wow.
and I liked writing. So then I started writing also on some of the shows and
Mm.
I became doing my writing too. But I never left the hospital, and I still worked there. But yeah, so I love the writing and the on camera and the everything.
And you were doing all this, and what you're saying, I mean, I don't know if you're saying that you were burning out. It sounds like you were working long hours to a point, like because you were doing both, right, at the same time between working in an actual hospital and doing the acting. And I
Uh,
would imagine that would kind of it could come crashing down at some point, or at least get you pretty tired.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I was doing like 14, you do like 14, 12-hour, it comes up to 14-hour shifts at the hospital. And then I was doing 13 hours or more on the sets. And then I was also taking care of my grandmother, um, and um, and I was living with my fiance. And I was just doing all that at the same time. And then this show that happened, I finally got to be the main lady, main woman to do it. I was the main
Mm-hmm.
girl. And so we were getting ready to cast all and getting all ready. And it was very exciting. And we were, I don't know if you know about television shows, you do like the designing of it and you're getting it all ready to go, to take off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I got hit by the car. I got hit on foot.
So you're walking at the time, or
I
you're
was,
kind
yeah, getting
of,
ready to go to the set, getting ready to get picked up.
wow. Okay. So and you're probably so busy in your life at this point, you're excited about the new role you've taken on, you're doing all these things. Did so here's a question for you right away before you tell me what happened with this. You again, did you always see yourself as intuitive up until this point?
I always have been a survivor, and always sort of like a street girl because, well, that sounds weird, but
Right.
because the way I was brought up was rough. I came from as a child, I had this intuitive ability with my eyes that were blinking when I was really little. And I had been told by parental figures to stop doing that. And I was doing healing with my hands on animals. And my grandmother, the one I'm talking about, that was very, very extremely close to, had asthma. And when she was sick, when I was like as young as like 2 years old, I'd put my hand on her chest and say, I'm healing you. I'm
Mm.
healing. And they would say, how do you know to say that? And I would say, heal, heal. And I would always say, my hands are reincarnated.
Oh, wow.
And I would put them up and I would say, look, they forgot to change my hands. And I didn't get expelled, but they called my mom and told her at school that I was saying weird things,
Mm.
weird things like reincarnation. And I would say, we don't come here from our moms. We come here, and I would point up, to the sky. And then my grandmother, who is German Jewish, but she believed in Buddhism, which
Hmm.
is interesting. She named me Chan, Chon.
Oh, wow.
And so she called me Chan, which means heaven.
Mm.
And so she didn't want anyone calling me Kimberly. So she always called me Chan. And she said, your name is Chan. And so that was another thing my mom didn't like. And my mom had an alcohol problem.
Mhm.
God bless her. I loved her very much. But my mom is 100% Italian.
Mm.
So I'm half Italian. But my mom, I love her very much, but she did not like this thing I had. And I was trans channeling as young as 5 years old, where I would sit up in my bed with my legs Indian style, and I would be sort of like light languaging, like saying blah, blah, like I don't know, like the light language talking. And I would sleepwalk, and the blinking eyes were going
Wow.
on. Now I know, after the experience, that my eyes now are my gifts, and we can talk about that in a minute, but how I trans channel. But the thing is that I was continuously scolded from 5 years old to 9 to stop my gifts when I was little.
Mm.
And
So
then
you,
I did. I said, okay, I won't do the blinking, and I won't do the healing.
so you intuitively felt this as a child. No one was teaching you this. This was just something that was coming naturally to you, whether it was the blinking, whether it was the healing of the hands, the comments you made about your hands being
Uh,
reincarnated.
yeah, I mean, I also was a singer, so I was singing.
Oh,
I
wow.
was a singer at school, and I sang in the choir and all that. But the blinking and the hands and the healing, they wanted to expel me, and but they let me sing. They said that was okay.
Right. Okay. So they allowed you to have your artistic side, but not the spiritual side in any way. That wasn't allowed. That's fascinating. And it's fascinating to hear that they actually wanted to expel you.
Oh no, yeah, and I had dyslexia. I had that, but they definitely, and I stuttered. I still do stutter a little, but I feel that they really, I mean, in the book, I talk about how it was continuously, she's, hitting me, slapping me to
Mm.
not exhibit these things. I mean, the exhibiting of what I would do with the healing was, I mean, I know it was kind of strange, but to me, it's not. I mean, I'm a pretty radical healer. I mean, I bring animals back. I brought one of our animals back that had passed.
Wow. That's incredible. You don't hear that too often.
I mean, but
Yeah.
we do that in ER. You're coding, and you've
Hmm.
gone to the other side, and intuitively, that's what we do. But if it's not supposed to come back, it won't come back. But if you are supposed to come back, if an animal wants to come back, it'll come back, or a person. So it's not
Wow.
like if it's not meant, it won't. But
So you were exhibiting these gifts as a child until you were told to stop, essentially. And you mentioned it. You said you mentioned this in your book.
it's all in my book. Yeah.
Is the
Yeah.
book is the book called I see the Awakening behind you. Is that the name of the book? Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But you when you stopped doing that and you were allowed to continue to sing. See, I went to a music school, which included acting, singing, everything. And a lot of the students that I went to school with ended up being actors or they ended up being musicians and all these things, which was a beautiful thing. And that's why I became a musician and all these things. So, is that when you had to stop using these gifts, but you were allowed to use your creative side, did that help you into your, teenage years and things like that?
Um, yes, she let me tap and dance and sing. I
Yeah.
did do, but I still, even though I was doing that, I still would sleepwalk, sleep talk, that's channel. Um, and I do something called remote viewing. And I was doing that with the door. I moved the door, and I would do things that she still didn't like.
Wow.
She still wasn't digging some of the things that were going on. Yeah.
So you're still doing these things because it's naturally who you are. It's part
Well,
of who you were.
now I teach classes.
Right, right. Well, now, yeah, I can understand. See, that's what's incredible is when we're younger and over time, I think we're becoming more nowadays, right? I think we're allowing this. We see children now. I have young children myself, and I think we're at a place now where if we see something, we don't scold at it anymore. We try to enhance their gifts or help them, right?
Now people want this, and now people
Mhm.
are like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah, yeah. You were the weird one back when you were doing it, and nobody wanted to. Yeah, isn't that interesting? So it's fascinating because you tell me this that you got into nursing, you got into acting as a nurse or as a I
On
don't know if you
camera.
were an actual on camera, you were a nurse as well, right? So
Yeah,
that's a creative art. That's an art, right? And an art form. And it just, I guess the reason I'd ask you is I feel like you kind of put a lot of passion and love and into your work ethic and getting yourself to this place because, over time you had to get to that point up until the point where you said that the NDE happened. You're overworked, you're doing all this, but you're loving, it seems like you loved what you you were doing at the time. Is that fair to
the,
say?
the nursing. Yeah, when I was, growing up with mom, I always had to help support her because she was struggling, and I had to work young. And I remember going to work as young as like as a candy striper. First thing I thought of in my head is I have to help people. Where do you
Hmm.
want to work? And I was like, babysit. The next thing was like, I got to go to the hospital. I want to work and help people. So I worked at a lot of the hospitals in LA. And then I started in the admitting office, and then I got my nursing, my nurse's aide. And I love it. And then it's always been a big passion of mine of taking care of people and helping them and being of service. So I loved it.
So you were doing that and you said that you got so okay, so leading up to the day that you got hit by the car, were you on your way to a set? Were you on your way to work? What was happening at the time that it happened?
Yeah, so I was on the way and getting into an Escalade, and it just wiped me out. It was kind of just a huge blackout, but it the car door hinge, I guess it was a freak accident. The guy didn't change the door hinge, and I guess it was in the back seat, and it flung open and knocked me off my feet. So he didn't, fix it. So um I flew, pretty far and then cracked my skull open.
Again, and this is one of the things that I like about having people like yourself on, especially people who've written books, because people can go and dig into the full story of what's happened, right? But I haven't dug in deeply to what happened next. But my first question would be, when that happened, when that first moment happened, were you aware that you were hit or that something happened, or were you outside of it immediately?
No, I knew that happened to me. Yeah.
Okay, so you felt the impact of what had happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, because some people, when they have these things happen, for instance, I interviewed someone a few weeks ago who, when they got in a car accident,
I knew that happened.
right before the car accident, they jumped out and saw the accident. You were actually physically experiencing, and
Yeah.
I sometimes like to
I
verify
didn't
that.
have my near that was not when I had my NDE when that hit me then.
I see.
Um, I had that blunt head thing there, and then I didn't have my near death experience then. That I had my horrible hit. And I would not stop. Like I just was horrific. I mean, um, it wasn't bleeding, but it was like a hematoma inside my skull.
Mm,
And I was determined to still work because I wasn't going to give up this job. And I remember I was like dizzy, I was throwing up, my neck got super tight, total concussion, everything. And I made him take me to the set. And he was like, "You need to go to the hospital." And I'm like, "No, I'm going. I'm not giving up the job." And the thing is, because for someone like me, and this would take like a 2 hour story
yeah.
on here. Um, I came from nothing. I was born in Compton, and my mom did everything she could to support us, but she died young of alcoholism. She was an actress, and things didn't go the way it was supposed to for her. And I've worked my whole life very hard, and I was not going to give up this show.
Right.
And I was like, and he was like, you need to go to the hospital. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I'm going to the show. So I go to the show. I'm dizzy. My head is killing me, pain. And I made it like half through. And then I was like so sick. I got back home really bad. Okay. Went to sleep. Next day I get up. I think I went about 2 more days.
Oh my goodness.
I can't remember, like on the third day, I got up, I went into the bedroom, and my fiance came in and he said I was passed out on the floor. And he rushed me to the emergency room. And they said, her kidney is failing and she's going to die.
So you were hit by a vehicle, continue to go to your job,
I
work
was
through the
not,
day,
yeah, I was not going to give up this, not going to give up this job that I worked so hard for.
right? And you went a few more days while while you had this wound, this
Yeah.
internal, likely, I guess and again,
It was bleeding.
I'm a
Yeah.
musician, not a internal bleeding, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And it was affecting your kidneys, obviously, because your body is overworking and all your organs are overworking.
Yeah. It was really bad.
And so you eventually get to the hospital.
Yeah, that's when they started working on me. And then when they started working on me, my blood pressure started to go down. And that's when I looked over at my blood pressure and they started putting the heparin in. They start working, and then it's when it went completely out.
Oh,
And I went and I looked up and I was out of my body then. So that's when I left my body.
okay. So you left your body when you're at the hospital.
I I completely left. Yeah. It was so surreal. I was in so much pain, and it was enormous amount of pain. Yeah, enormous amount of pain. I don't even like thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I never came home the same. I was there for 2.5 months. They wouldn't release me because I couldn't walk. I had a lot of seizures. And I was, you know, when they talk about being out of your body, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of near-death experience stories, um, I was out of body looking at myself, at them working on me, but I also experienced some interesting things, which was an enormous amount of light and pressure on my chest. And the light that was going on with me was hitting my eyes and blinding my eyes for a long time. And the pressure was hitting my chest, an enormous amount of pressure on my chest. And I just remember hearing a whisper in my ear, saying, "You're staying." And I kept saying, "Get off me." And it kept saying, "You're staying." And I kept saying, "Get off me." And I kept fighting with this voice. And I kept thinking to myself, "Are you God?"
Huh.
And it kept saying, "You're staying." And I kept saying, "Get off." And it kept
Okay.
saying, "You're staying." And I kept saying, "Get off me." And it was like this interesting thing happening.
Did you feel that when you were saying that you were fighting for your life?
I don't know. I don't really know. I just know that it was this interesting um experience. And I know it
Mm-hmm.
was, I feel like it was the Holy Spirit,
Mm,
having an encounter with God, the Holy Spirit. And um I'm happy that the Holy Spirit came
yeah.
to me, because now my eyes came back, the blinking. Because after that
Mm,
experience, Um, it took many months from when I came home. The light that happened at the hospital came back to me again. And then the eyes reappeared through the blinking. I never had the blinking in years since I was a child. And once spirit came back to me again, that same light that was in the hospital that was saying, you're staying, came back to me again when I had my second NDE, when I came back from at the hospital, when I came back home. And then my eyes, reappearance of the blinking eyes came. And that's when I was 100% a trance channel. I'd had a different voice, a different walk, and a different mission. My life before was completely gone. So when I was released from the hospital, finally, once I could take steps and walk, I came home from the hospital with my fiance, and he said, "You're not talking the same. You're different." And I said, "I don't know." I was very quiet. And I knew I had experienced an experience, but I didn't know, I'd never heard of the word a near-death experience. I didn't know any kind of spiritual stuff.
Right. Couple
But
different.
my eyes hadn't blinked yet.
Oh, okay.
They
Your
had
eyes
been
hadn't,
blinded. They had been blinded by the light when I had my out-of-body experience.
and both near-death experiences, they happen at that hospital? Like,
No, the
oh,
second one did not happen at the hospital. The second one happened at out on my boulevard on the street
okay.
after I came home from the hospital.
Okay. So you came home from the hospital, the blinking hadn't started yet, but you had had the experience with the light. One of the questions I was going to ask, and then you kind of answered it, because I was going to ask you if that light or that feeling, if it was a positive or negative feeling.
The only negative feeling I got from that experience of crossing and coming back was the huge amount of pressure on my chest
Hmm.
of being brought back up, brought back in.
Okay. So being brought back online on this
Yeah,
world. Okay.
where I asked to please get off me.
Oh, that's fascinating. And I also find it fascinating that the blinking that you had as a childhood came back. Almost like I don't want to use the word reborn because that can mean so many different things to so many people. But you had this gift as a child. It was I don't want to say it was taken away, but it was kind of pushed down. You kind of continued on with your life and then you have this experience and now it's back. And now it's back.
One of my chapters is called The Reappearance of My Blinking Eyes.
Okay.
So you're right, reborn, re-blink, re.
When you came back, did you see the world around you different?
Yes. I see everything different. Everything has a frequency and codes, and my eyes blink and communicate all information to me. So when I look at somebody like you or a person, or I decide to do something, they blink in codes and frequencies with me, and they tell me, who to trust, who not to trust, what to do, what not to do. They also do readings, mediumships, my gifts, fully. And throughout the last 10 years, the decade, we've grown in different ways, and they've taught me I sign language through the eyes and my hands, and I do different ways of communicating with the guides, and they predict things up to 2035.
Wow. So I'm fascinated by this entire story. And here you are just getting into this career field. You're
I
going
know
towards this amazing opportunity you had. What happened around that, if you don't mind me asking? Did you continue down that road?
the work that I was doing.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is very interesting. Years and years and years of contacts and me being really deep in the entertainment world was left behind. And that's in my book, Agents and Everything. I was 100% checked off as disabled. I was in a wheelchair for over 2 years and I was in a collar, and they said I would never walk again. And so from 2012, 13, 14, I was discovered on my couch by a um, agent and football player. And they saw me here at my house. One of them was an agent friend of mine. I was doing cold laser therapy on my couch with my neck. And I started doing pray. I was praying and I was hearing my guides speak to me. I
Mm.
was starting to get messages and my eyes were blinking. And I said to them, there's this blinking going on they did when I was like little, and I'm hearing messages. And I got this laser machine and I'm using it and I'm feeling a little bit better. And we knew I would never go back to my career. It was over because I was in a wheelchair and I was really sick and I couldn't walk very well. And he said, well, I have to go in for surgery. I have an Achilles surgery coming up. And I was rubbing my hands together. I knew nothing about Reiki. I didn't know really what I was doing, but I remembered my hands were getting hot, like when I was little. And I was
Mhm.
putting it on the back of my neck and I was using like cold laser. And I remember I did it to his Achilles heel. I said a prayer and I did the cold laser to him. And my neck was starting to get a little better with the cold laser. And he left and went to the hospital for his visit. He called me up and he said, I'm healed. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, I don't need surgery. And I said, what are you talking about? And I'd only done like the laser, like just a little bit. And I had been going to the pain center and off all my pain medicine, and my neck, they were showing was getting better too. And my girlfriend was a Reiki master and she was a nurse also. And she'd been working on my neck too with Reiki. And it was really weird. Like I was starting to get code messages. Like I would sit at the house, had nothing to do. I would, just healing on me with the cold laser. And I'd write on the paper, I'd say, what does my right eye mean? And it say yes. What does the left eye mean when it blinks? And it would say no. And these were, I could hear the spirit say to me. I'd say, are people going to think this is crazy if this is what they're saying, to me?
Right.
And then I'd say, well, should I practice on somebody? So I went like this to my girlfriend and I went over her body. I scanned her and I said, did you ever have a torn knee? She goes, I did. I said, that's interesting because I heard that. And then I would start scanning her body and I would go through her thing and I'd hear a message
Wow.
in my ear, but my eyes would blink, really fast. So then my friend came back over and he said, he was my ex-agent, and he said to me, do you listen? I am healed. They canceled the surgery. My Achilles heel is completely healed from you praying on it. I go, I just couldn't get it, you know? And then he said to me, I'm going to send some friends of mine over to you, and you have nothing else to do. You're not making any money, and you're not going to go back to working on shows. So why don't I send them to you? We could put a Reiki bed in your living room, and you can start doing healing on them. You're a healer. And I
Right.
said, I am? And he goes, yeah. So what happened is from 2000, like I think it was around 14, 15, I started getting a lot of people coming in my house and I wasn't charging. I mean, sometimes they'd give me 50 bucks and I would go across their body, like pretty much like I'm blind. I look off and I would like scan and I would say, oh, this is where you have this, where you have that. And then I would say, you want me to do laser on your shoulder or laser here? Or they'd tell me, I have a rotator cuff tear. And I would do the laser. Then I would hear a message. I would hear a voice come in and it would say, this is different. So that's the medical intuitive part.
Mm-hmm.
root cause. Sometimes I would hear, "Achoo," and the person would not know it. Or I'd hear, they have cancer, and the person would not know it. And I'd say, oh, you need to go get checked out for something here in your breast, or you need to get checked out. And they'd say, I don't need that. I'd say, you need to go get that checked out. And then I would hear, you need to heal them. You need to heal them. So then I would put my hands on an area of their body and I'd say, let me do a healing. And they'd say, okay. So it started to progress
Wow.
faster. And so then I didn't even know who I was channeling.
Right.
And then one day, a person from What's the Bleep, who's a producer,
Yeah.
and then What's the Secret came in.
Mm-hmm.
And it started becoming bigger and bigger right in my living room. I never
Oh
left
my
my
goodness. Yeah. That kind of
hundred
reminds me of
people.
was that the way Edgar Casey was?
Well, this is what happened. I
Okay.
didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything. I was so stupid. So I'm sitting in my house doing these people coming in. They're coming and finding out about me. This is in Los Angeles. And at the time I was living with my fiance, who is an editor for a show. And I don't like to talk about him too much, but he said, I give you 2 weeks to stop it. And I'm like, why? And he's like, why? I don't want people coming in the house. And I don't think this is what we signed up for when I met you. And I'm like, okay, but I'm being told, just imagine you meet somebody that doesn't have any of this going on. I'm
Right.
being told by spirit that I need to do this. And he's like, you need to stop blinking and you need to stop doing what you're doing. And I said, no, I'm told I'm supposed to do this. And he said, do what? I said, scan people and find out what's wrong and then heal them. And he said, I'm giving 2 weeks. And if you don't stop doing it, I'm moving out and we were supposed to be together forever. So you make a choice, and I'm serious. So I said, I have to stay doing this. And he said, if you don't stop, you won't be able to live here because you can't afford it on your own.
Wow.
So he moved out.
Oh my goodness. So it did change your life completely.
He moved out. But wait to what the part about Edgar Casey.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really, really in bad shape, financially and everything wasn't going very good for me. And I was like doing all this scanning and healing.
Right.
And one day it got out to more and more people. This woman found me from Virginia, and she's, I guess, part of Edgar Casey. And she called me up. She goes, Kimberly Meredith? And I'm like, yeah. She goes, would you like to come out here and do an event? And I said, to do what? She goes, to do what you're doing. And I said, I guess, but what do you mean? She goes, well, you're channeling Edgar Casey. I said, who's Edgar Casey?
Wow.
And she goes, he's the most famous medical intuitive in the world. She goes, you're scanning people and finding all these diseases and root causes and everything. I think you should look him up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, the moment you were describing the work you started doing, and on top of it, that it was coming to you in a way that was very from the heart. It was a natural progression you were going through from coming back because you couldn't work. You're kind of, I don't want to say you were bedridden, but you weren't able to do the work you were doing. So this was just something you started to do. And then it starts, as soon as you started talking more about it, I'm like, this is exactly the way this is what I'm with Edgar Casey. Not the same way, but you know what I mean? He was channeling people, he was not channeling, he was scanning people, finding what their ailments were and healing them or helping them heal or giving them advice and those types of things, you
A
know.
trans channel. So it wasn't far after that. They kind of just took out that life, replaced me with this life. I start I didn't seek out organizations. Um, I had some people find out about me and start flying me to different organizations and testing me and finding out my skills through IONS Research Institute,
Yeah.
SciTech Institute, and other places.
Do you believe you just said something really powerful there? You said you kind of, because you had the NDE and you kind of flipped, yet you did have the blinking and you did have the intuition as a child. Do you feel it was more that you were going in this other direction into the acting, into the nursing and all this, and it was suppressing your gifts and it came out after the NDE, or do you really feel there was this massive shift? And because you were born with these gifts already, now now you have this body. It's almost like your body's like a tool, and now you can use you can use this in the work that you're going to be doing.
I feel like the near-death experience has opened up, I feel like we all have beautiful gifts. And I
Mhm.
feel like if we follow, I mean, I could have suppressed it anyway after the near-death experiences. I could have just said no to spirit and not had gone with the flow. I could have said yes to my significant other and said he was
Mhm.
just reduplicating my mom again. And I feel like I could have said, I will be the good girl and do what I'm told. But because I was taken over by who I really am, which is the trans channel and a psychic medium healer,
Mhm.
um, and I'm really proud to say, a life coach for people that need somebody like me to say, go for who you really are and don't let somebody stop that, because we have many lives, maybe, but,
Right.
but I feel like, um, I felt really good saying to him when he did leave and it was on very good terms, we were really good that I don't know how I said it to him, but I said to him, God will provide for me. And he was like, I don't know how, because he was in a different dimension. And we'll get to what I talk about dimensions, which is weird because I don't know about dimensions, but Einstein and Casey do, and they speak through me. But it's okay because we all live in different dimensions of reality. And he just was in a different dimension. And they had just, boosted me to this higher dimension when I had my NDE.
Right.
And I came in a high dimension as a child, and I was pushed down to the third dimension with the grown-ups. And so he just wanted to move me back down to the lower dimension, but they were on a mission when I had my NDEs because they use me as their puppet. It's not me doing any of the work. I just serve them and what they want me to do. And so he just wasn't, on the dimension, the partner for me and for my mission that I'm supposed to be on.
I also find it fascinating though that you experienced that with your mother and that same energy came back around and you had to face that again, right? Because you're right, you could have repeated that cycle. How many times do people repeat cycles in this life? And it shifts you pretty quick. And then you're like, how did I get here again? You know,
Yes.
right?
And
Yeah,
there's clients of mine, they'll say, Kimberly, I think I have this gift too, like a star seeder crystal kids come to me and they'll say, they're telling me not to do that, but I want to do it. And
right.
you have to have the strength and be fearless.
Yeah. So you originally were healing yourself. I'm just trying to clear that up, right? Because you had the neck issue, or I think you said you had neck issue. So were
Okay.
you practicing Reiki on yourself and you could notice that you were healing?
I got my Reiki license. First, did not have a Reiki license. I was working without one on myself and others at first. And thank God, my girlfriend, who was a nurse and she worked on sets too, she started doing the Reiki with me, and my hands were getting hot like they did when I was young. And I didn't know that, because Reiki is a word, right? And an energy, and we can all do it. We can all get the heat from our hands. I do what's called psychic surgery, but I don't just do it through healing with the hands. And I dissolve things with my hands. I can dissolve lumps off people and tumors off people through healing. It's been documented in research. So I started doing it, healing the back of my head and my neck. And that was working without taking medications.
And then that led to people, or you said it was I think it was your agent bringing people in and kind of the rest is history. It kind of just started to kind
Yeah,
of move into
he
that.
he was saying because people go for holistic healings and they go for chiropractics and things like that. And he was just saying, I know a person that's doing healing. Go try her out.
Hmm. Did this change your whole entire mindset of who we are at our core? Like why we, like what our purposes and things like that in life?
Back then,
Yeah.
I would, and even now, even who I am, or they go, no, not you, we. They blink with the eyes. Um, I looking at it for me, am completely still blown away that I'm doing this because
Hmm.
I was then a girl that went to the mall. I prayed to Mary, and I practiced Judaism and Catholicism together and was very spiritual, but I was not anything like this now. I am now 7 days a week in prayer and meditation, and I am committed to service with clients and people. And I am a totally different person now than I was back before the NDEs. Yeah, and before this happened.
I just want to say how beautiful it is a few times today just talking to you. It's not that you corrected me, but it was the way that we were communicating that it's this, it's not you, it's your guides, right? That you have accepted that you are kind of an antenna for something bigger than yourself. And a lot of people, because of our egos, we can't do that. A lot of people are, no, it's me. It's me. I'm special, that kind of thing, right? So it's amazing that you've really like you're really in tune with that. Did you know that right away, or did you have to learn that this was not you? This was something higher than yourself.
Um, the book bring to the book, The Awakening to the Fifth Dimension. When thank you for asking that. They're saying, um, the first time that I dissolved a tumor off somebody that was larger than a lemon, and it dissolved quickly when we were in prayer, oming, and the lady was crying and saying, um. Om Namah Shivaya, thank you, Kimberly, thank you. And I kept hearing them say, no, it's not you, Kimberly, you know, and I kept saying to her, we need to thank the omnipresent God. And I don't want to ever feel that, that someone's thanking me. And because the energy of the omnipresent is so powerful. And when it's coming through me, when I'm laying hands and doing the healing, or when I'm finding something in someone when I'm scanning, and they're using the energy to do that type of work, I feel it's so important that we know where that energy is coming from.
And do you feel, and you may or may not be able to answer this, but do you feel there's a lot going on in the world right now?
Yes,
There's a lot of energy shifting, and the woo woo is not looking woo woo any longer. It really isn't. I think a lot of people can't even keep up with what's happening. Um, I look at you and I hear your story, and I feel intuitively that a lot more of what you have experienced is a lot of our future. It's where we're moving towards. And do you get any type of intuition as if that is happening? If that's kind of what's going, are we coming online to something bigger than ourselves? Because there's so much energy going on right now.
I do. I feel that they're excited that we're going to learn more about how to take control of our own health and to activate our own healing abilities, and more about preventative health, and learn how to, as easy as, changing our filters on our sinks, learning how to scan ourselves too. Like I feel like a lot of people are learning that they can have healing abilities too and awaken themselves with that, not be afraid of something that's different. And um everything is to be together. Like in the fifth dimension that I talk a lot about, um, it's not something to be afraid about because we can't live in a third dimension anymore. The 3D world's depopulating.
Mm.
And the fifth dimension is nothing to be afraid of. It's going to be easy to be there and stay there and live there. It's kind, it's loving, it's forgiving, and it's a place that is very grounding. And it's really exciting.
And it's as I was saying to you before, there's been a lot of shifts going, even with the people I've talked to over the last year. I've trusted something very different that I didn't understand even myself because there's someone like yourself who's been doing this for a while and you kind of understand the messages, the voices, the things that you get. Whereas I always was intuitive and I would always think something or something would happen and then it would happen. I'd go, oh, I should have said something. And what's happened in the last year, and I don't know if this is just me grounding myself better, is I will get a message or I'll get a, a knowingness is the only way I can say it, and it's not with emotion or anything. And instead of me questioning it, I just go, okay. And sometimes I'll be with a client, like because I coach music for a living. I'll be with a student, and I'll say, okay, I'm sorry, I need to say this, blah, 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 blah. Now, the old Joe wouldn't have done that because I would have been afraid of scrutiny or what are you talking about? Right? Now I say it and I kind of throw it out there. In the beginning, it almost like felt like I was throwing a dart in the dark. Like, oh, okay, what's going to happen? And what I was surprised with was either tears or oh my, I was just thinking about that on the way over, or and then it's making the hair on my arms go up. And I've learned that when the hair on my arms go up, that is a confirmation for me, whatever that means. So it's every time I have that, I go, okay, I'm right. So now I just hear it and I say it as long as I don't feel like I'm going to hurt someone. If I feel like there's something that might maybe they're not meant to hear yet or like but I don't overthink it. It's either okay and it's very quick now. It's boom, okay, boom. I don't know how else to describe it. Does this make any sense to you? Where it's very direct. Okay.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
very connected to the afterlife also.
Mhm.
I do see either like a grandmother around you. Did
Yeah.
you have a grandma that
She
passed
was the
away?
closest in my life.
She's
She
sitting
was my
on your
rock.
shoulder. Yeah, she's sitting
Oh,
on your shoulder. I've seen her since like I came on.
okay.
Um, so yeah, she is very close to you. And I feel like you are extremely, and you're an empath too. So you
Mm.
pick up on people's
Oh,
feelings really
so
easily.
strongly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
strongly. Yeah.
That's your intuitive abilities too. But she's really a very she's coming in now. She wants to talk.
I bet.
Yeah, I'm very I speak, that's the other thing I have too. I have like a lot of these things happening. So yeah, I speak to the other side really easily. And I
Mm,
help a lot of people, especially right now that have had um children that have taken their my mom had uh taken her life. So like people that have lost their children to suicide and other people have taken life, they love to come in and comfort. So she's telling me something she's saying she's very, very close to you. She's like saying, I'm like a soulmate or knew you in a past life, and
hmm
she's with you again. And she was a very kind woman.
hmm Yeah.
And you are too. She's showing me like you're an angel. You carry the number 4.
Oh, I could. Okay. That's an angel
Saying you have,
number.
yeah, yeah. But she's with you all the time.
Mm. She was
I
my
think,
rock. She was my rock in my life up
yeah, she's
until
showing
she.
me the 8, which is soulmate.
Mm. That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah, she really
Yeah.
came.
And when you mention the empath, there with the soul inspired, there are a lot of people who are empaths. These are people who are tuning into shows like this.
Yeah,
They're truth seekers. They're seeking these feelings.
yeah.
How does one who's an empath understand how to not get caught in others' feelings? So because for all my life, I'll feel somebody and it affects me immediate and it's overwhelming and I'm trying to learn, and this could be someone else tuning into this, how to not become what I'm feeling. How do I make it not my own?
That's a really nice question. I think it's really cool to be an empath. I think it's really nice to have kindness and love for people, to be there for them, to listen and then not own it, step back
Mm,
after you're there for the person.
okay.
Um, I feel that, um, I guess for myself, because I'm a psychic medium, a trancer, I don't carry it into myself. I use a lot of protection. I step back out of it because I try to train my clients that work with me, and I do mediumship classes, um, to be there for somebody, help them, but then remember you're not them.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that makes
No, it
sense.
does. And I guess the acceptance of that it's okay that I feel but I don't have to
Yeah.
claim it as my own.
You
Because
don't
I
want,
find when I feel it, it really helps the person I'm talking to. When I acknowledge
absolutely.
their feeling, they go, "Oh my goodness, okay." It's almost like because some people don't want to let out their feeling, and it's there, and because I feel it and I acknowledge it, they let it out. And I
Yeah.
notice it immediately, and I go, "Okay, all right."
Yeah. I feel like, Joe, it's good to be there for people right now. We want to be loving and kind. If somebody is taking it too far into the 3D, then we need to have boundaries.
Right.
But I feel like being kind and loving and understanding is really important right now. Um, you know, there's third dimensional relationships that are meant to not last, and there's fifth dimensional relationships that are meant to grow and learn. And those fifth dimensional relationships need nurturing and kindness.
Mm. And that's what we're moving into. The
Absolutely.
relationship is moving into the 5D, which I hear constantly about. I'm still trying to understand.
Yeah, I wrote a
Exa-
book on it.
Where, yeah, I was actually going to ask you because whether it's your coaching, whether it's your books and all this, where do people get in contact with you with the work that you're doing now?
Okay, yeah. I'm at the Healing Trilogy, thehealingtrilogy.com. And I do a lot of mediumship classes. I do a lot of um, Zoom sessions, evidential psychic mediumship, medical intuitive sessions, and healing. And I also have an office in Los Angeles. I'm open a few days a week,
Oh, wow.
a clinic. And we do a lot of nonprofit organized events where people come on and we do co-healing prayer groups,
Mm.
healing groups that are free. So people can come on and jump on. And we have a lot of musicians that come on and do hint, hint.
Yeah. Well, definitely being in LA, right? I
Hey,
mean,
Fred.
yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I hope that I see more of this going on because, I mean, Edgar Casey, you don't hear about this often, this kind of, I mean, healing is out there, but I'm really hoping, and I don't see a prediction of future. I'm sure you've seen things coming, but I just feel like I've always been an optimist. There's so much negativity out there that I don't grab a hold of that. I'm always looking at the optimistic piece of where we're moving because there's a lot going on. And when things are shaky, I feel like people are getting kind of agitated with everything going on around the world right now. And so I'm always trying to tell everybody that like the such thing as growing pains, right? And I would
Yeah.
hope that down the road in our future, hopefully the near future, that we will be doing more healing through 5D, like the way that the work that you're doing. And I just hope that I see more of that coming. So I don't know if you've ever felt like that is coming more and that there's going to be a lot more of that happening.
Um, I feel like in my book, in the back of the book, there are lots of miracle healings that have been documented that are really fun and cool to watch, either listen to and read. And then on my YouTube channel, you can watch, they're there. And then if you come into some of our groups, you can watch. And Joe Dispenza does a lot of this
Yeah.
type of that I do.
Hmm.
And there's so many healers out there in the world way before I was born that was doing the kind of laying on hands healing that I do. They're telling me right now 2027 is going to be a huge number of people having their abilities awakened. and doing more and more of this work. And I think that this is kind of ramping up right now,
Mm.
that people need to have more confidence in themselves that they can do this. And it's Reiki, but it's a little bit of a higher level that I'm talking about when you read my book. The Awakening to the Fifth Dimension, how this title came about was not through me. The Awakening up to the Fifth Dimension came about from being seen at these large expos and laying hands on people that had these huge um, tumors, and people seeing me having them dissolved, and me channeling and saying, as I laid hands on people, saying, "Do you accept the fifth dimension?" And then so many
Mm.
people screaming, "We're in the fifth dimension. We're in the fifth dimension." And when you
Wow.
say that, it dissolves. And then what
Right.
happened is that publishers were out at the expos, they saw it dissolve, and then people filmed it, and then people were scientifically documenting there is a fifth dimension. There's many dimensions. There's
Right.
dimensions beyond fifth dimension. But what's happening is that um, we need to just get into the fifth dimension
Right.
right now.
Right.
And also, what's important to understand, it's a pathway of living. You can't just be like, oh, I'll be on the fifth dimension on the weekend, and then on Monday I'm going back to 3D and taking a break.
Mm.
It's a whole way of living. It's like, okay, in my book, I have, exercises, how you make your home 5D, how you eat. You can't
Wow.
eat well and meditate and then take a vitamin that has red dye in it. Everything has to line up, in your
Hmm.
life. But the fifth dimension is like being on a Harry Potter ride. It really is super fun and cool to be in, especially if you have some sort of illness in your body and you have this, it kind of feels like an NDE ride. You go and you accept the healing and you go up to this fifth dimensional energy speed, and then you go to the doctor and you get your results back and you're completely healed.
Wow.
But then you have to stay in that vibration. You have to still meditate. You have to eat well, drink well. So I have clients from like 4 years ago that have been healed, and they'll call me up and say, I'm still healed.
Wow.
Yeah, amen. But this is like you go back to me being a kid. I
Hmm.
was doing laying on hands healing when I was a baby, when I was little.
Right.
I
And
was
with
doing,
the I think you said the animals too,
yeah,
right?
and
Or
my
right.
grandma, yeah.
Hmm.
So, Awaken to the Fifth Dimension
Okay.
is a really quick read. It's like my first book as an author. I'm working on my second book, but this book um, talks more in detail of how my guides feel about the fifth dimension. Of course, if you go on TikTok and Instagram, everyone talks about fifth dimension right now. They love it. But fifth dimension, well, hey, there's a song out there, right? Up, up and away and Awaken to the Fifth Dimension.
Right. Yes. Yep. Absolutely. And I actually love that there is information out there. Yes, there's misinformation and false information out there, but the idea that it's even out there means, I mean, that if you were to step back and you look at that, you can see that we're changing. There are things coming and changing. People are seeing orbs in the skies, and there's just
Yeah.
odd things that are happening that we can't even 15 years ago we would have been thinking there's no way, but things are shifting so quickly now. And I think that's why I think shows like this and guests like yourself,
Yes, I
and
love
I'm
the
so blessed to have people like you come on because people are looking for guidance and answers when
thank
they can feel kind of lost, right? I always end the show by asking one question, and I'm really curious about your answer to this. And it would be, okay, this is going to be interesting because we are in this 3D, but in this physical form, on a whole, as a whole, why do we incarnate here instead of just staying on the other side? Why is it that we come here?
That's a really great question, and I'm letting them answer it.
Hmm.
Um, you're like those guides again. Okay, they're telling me they're saying, this is from the Holy Spirit is coming in. they're saying they want us to come back to experience. They keep saying over and over again to serve and experience, and they want us to come back into, I guess they keep wanting us to come back and experience miracles and awakenings and healing and progress humanity forward. There's something about that happening right now where
Mm,
you're not complete yet. And there's something about this completion. They're also channeling 2035 about some kind of big awakening. And I know we keep talking about when is that great awakening, but they won't channel past 2035 for me. And I wanted to say that to you. And they are channeling a very comforting number of that. And they are channeling to me a beautiful energy about everybody deserves to have their miracle.
mm. That's amazing. I love that. I've never had that answer, and it kind of dug in. I think I was digging for that. I wanted to almost hear that it was a that it's part of our, I don't want to say evolution, but it's part of our continuous progression towards something maybe more enlightened of who we are. And I mean, look at the conversation we've even had going from, we're talking about these ideologies now, we're going from 3D to 5D. I even like that one point when you said we no longer can be in three, we have to go to 5D. It's not an option any longer.
You're
And
going, no. Yeah.
right, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So there has to be an integration, right? And that now I'm feeling the same thing. So
They're
I just
really excited. They're
uh
really excited. And they're really excited about how so many people are so ready for it and excited about it.
hmm And I also like how you mentioned the 20, I've heard the 2035 date before. I've heard the
Right.
2027 date before. The 2035 one right away. It's interesting. Sometimes you'll say something and I'll question it and then you'll answer it. So you said the 2035 and it ends, and I went, "Oh, is that bad?" And you said, "No, it feels great. It feels like a good thing. There's a good thing around it. So it doesn't mean it's a negative thing. It's just that's where you're seeing it till right now. It's 2035." Interesting. Ah, thank you so much for coming on tonight. This has been absolutely amazing. I want to say to
Thank
everybody that's been listening, the Soul Inspired community, please check out Kimberly's, I think it was called Awakening to the Fifth Dimension,
Yep.
the book. Please check her out. And also your website again. Could I get your website again?
Thehealingtrilogy.com.
Healingtrilogy.com. Thank you so much. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe to The Soul Inspired. Share this with as many people as you think it would help. That's why I'm doing this. And thank you so much, Kimberly, for coming on the show tonight.
You're amazing. I love the show.
So